Deborah's Sick has some really great moments in it. This is the 13th episode of the first season of Everybody Loves Raymond. It's directed by Michael Lembeck, and there will be spoilers as I discuss various aspects of this episode. It's very timely for me, as I am actually rather under the weather just now. I'm hoping it's not coming across in my voice. I do have a scratchy throat, but I don't think it's affecting my voice, but apologies if it is obvious. So it was a little bit of a comfort for me, as is often the case, of course, with Everybody Loves Raymond. Interestingly, though, while it's called Deborah's Sick, it's actually more about Raymond and the role he plays in his children's lives, and it also highlights just how much Deborah does, and I will talk about how that comes about when we get there. Most of my thoughts, though, are going to be chronological, and of course, it starts off with Deborah waking up in the morning, finding out that she's sick. Ray really doesn't want her to be sick today because he's got an important interview with Terry Bradshaw, and I will be perfectly honest, I had no idea who Terry Bradshaw was. He was apparently a football quarterback. As is often the case with Everybody Loves Raymond, I tend to not know who Ray is talking about, but he seems like a pretty big name, so that's kind of cool. And Ray is acting kind of selfishly, but at the same time, I can kind of understand, because if you have this amazing opportunity, you don't want anything to get in the way of things. But he could have been a little bit more tactful with how he was going about things. But nevertheless, he gets the children ready, he helps to get their breakfast, and he invites Marie over. And when Marie comes over, Deborah comes downstairs, and they realise that Ali and Michael are both quite unwell as well. And Marie puts this giant lipstick kiss on Geoffrey's forehead when she's checking Geoffrey's temperature. He's absolutely fine, and we get this bright red lipstick, and it looks brilliant. And then she puts the lipstick on Deborah's forehead, and we have a couple of sweet moments between Marie and Deborah, and I'll highlight those when we get there. But I thought that was rather adorable. And then we actually go to the pediatrician's waiting room with Ray and Ali and Michael and a bunch of other children. And Terry Bradshaw comes in. Ray has managed to convince him to do the interview there. It doesn't go according to plan, but it is a brilliant scene. Even though I didn't know who Terry Bradshaw was, I found it very amusing that he was sitting on the stuffed giraffe. So even if you don't know who he is, you can definitely still enjoy those scenes. And then we go back to Marie and Deborah, and I think the back and forth is done very well. I think we spend enough time with Ray before going back to Deborah, and vice versa. I think everything is very well edited, and Marie is going on about the coats that she bought the twins and how they're paper coats, as she describes them. And then Frank comes in looking for ketchup, and Deborah's in bed with a smudged lipstick stain on her head, and she just wants them to leave. And it's very much not what you want when you're unwell, but Marie means well. Meanwhile, back at the doctor's office, we meet the doctor, Dr. Hammond, played by Jack Blessing, and the Looney Tunes decor I adored. The doctor's office is decorated with a border that has all of the characters on it, and then there are stickers on the walls of Looney Tunes characters. I had a lot of fun with that. I found that to be absolutely adorable. And he's checking the twins, and obviously Ali's got a fever, and Michael's fine. He's absolutely fine. And it's not actually where I thought this was going, because the doctor's asking Ray a lot of questions and he can't answer them. And it's basically highlighting the fact that Deborah is the one who does everything with the twins. And this is because Ray is at work, and Ray shouldn't feel bad about that as such, because if he has to work, he has to work. But he can't answer a lot of the questions, and this comes up a little later on in the episode. But he tells the doctor that Michael will have the same flu as Ali, and I thought actually what was going to happen is the doctor was going to check Michael and it would be something different. Maybe it was just a fever from teething. That could happen. But no, what happened was significantly funnier. At the perfect moment, the comedic timing is amazing. Robert enters the room and swaps the children. Ray had picked up the wrong twin, which was very, very awkward. And then we go back to the house, and we have this beautiful, beautiful moment between Marie and Deborah. And they don't make a big deal about this in the episode, but it really stood out to me. Maria is looking after Debra, and Debra says that it's actually quite nice to be looked after for a change. And Marie says, when it's one of your own. And I just thought that was so sweet, and I got a little choked up because we know that there's tension between Marie and Debra, but here we have proof that actually, in her own way, Marie really does care about Debra, and she does see her as a daughter-in-law rather than her husband's wife, if that makes sense. And it was very sweet and very, very moving. And then it became even more adorable as Ray came home. Everybody is laughing at him for picking up the wrong twin. Frank gives the toy he's holding a little squeak, and it's very entertaining, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we have the the final scenes. Where Terry Bradshaw phones Ray, and he very sweetly declines to go to his hotel for the interview, and then Debra understandably tells him to go because he needs to make the money, and her closing line about rubbing some dirt on it really amused me. On its own, that doesn't make any sense, but when you watch the episode, it does, and I rather enjoyed it. So, in my sickly state, this episode actually did make me feel a little bit better, a little bit comforted, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Deborah's Sick is a brilliant episode. I couldn't remember much about it from when I used to binge watch the show, which is great because it means that I get to enjoy the jokes fresh without knowing they're coming. As I said, the whole thing with Michael and swapping him with Geoffrey, didn't see it coming. Very, very entertained. Really enjoyed it. Deborah's Sick is definitely a really brilliant episode.